Well, so you're actually giving me kind of the same report that Tim just gave. Uh,
Okay.
the Christmas is supposed to be the holiday good cheer, and yet I don't hear a lot of good cheer.
It's not. It's generally very
That I
negative.
was kind of expecting you to say, "Oh, what a wonderful Christmas this has been! I've got my brothers and my family, and everybody's here, and I've been sitting on the cushion and getting joy, and then spreading that joy, and everybody's so happy." But that's not what you're telling me.
Yeah, I mean some of it, yeah, but it just seems to be more about just consumerism. It seems to be more of a holiday for consumerism and capitalism. So uh, there doesn't seem to
Are
be.
you suggesting that the business world has stolen Christmas from Christianity? That
Yes,
that big business is the Grinch that stole Christmas?
yeah.
Well, I've got news for you.
What's that?
And that is that in that regard, it's actually just reclaiming property that belonged to it that during the Roman times,
Hmm.
that Christmas was already celebrated, that all of the pagan temples in Rome were looking for this is the time for everybody to come and to buy trinkets and jewelry and all of that kind of stuff, much of it to be donated to the temple.
Hmm.
And so the whole business of Christmas predated the Christians calling it Christmas. And that there's other cultures that have also celebrated that. Northern Europe has the all of this quality of Yuletide logs and Christmas trees and deck the halls and all of that kind of stuff is different than the Roman system, which was just brash commercialism
Hmm.
to associated with the temple. So naturally, when Christianity came along, they saw a good thing, and so Christianity has always had the habit of borrowing whatever they found, rather than trying to convert people out of a belief and also out of all of their rituals. Christianity has just incorporated all of those rituals and slowly changed the view, so that everything that there's a big interaction, for instance, between mythos and Christianity, but that most of the things that we see in Jesus predated both Christianity and Mithras. But Mithras was the religion of the Roman um, army. And so there are far flung temples dedicated to Mithras, even in Great Britain. They have uncovered Mithras temples. But when Constantine came by, he decided that he was going to sort of take control of all of these various religions. And the outcome was the Roman Catholic Church was invented by and manufactured by Constantine. And so all of those old Roman beliefs and all of the old pagan holidays and everything like that, including things like virgin birth, death and resurrection after 3 days, and that kind of stuff, really, really predates Christianity. But
Hmm.
here's the point. In modern day Christianity, it's supposed to be the fulfillment of all of that stuff. Tim was telling me that all of the kids in the house, even though they all got presents, none of the kids were really happy.
Hmm.
That they weren't going to sleep with visions of sugar plums dancing in their heads. That Christianity, or let us say Christmas, winds up not being what it was intended to be, and that is that once a year the parents give kids the toys and presents to make them happy because the parents have not been doing their job of making the kids happy all year long.
Right.
And so here's where the commercial part comes in. And that is oh, you've got to go spend a lot of money, go into debt, sometimes 3 months of debt or more, to make the kids happy. And you can't do it. You're not going to make them happy on Christmas if you haven't taught them how to be happy all year.
Yeah.
and, and so Christmas is, in fact, an intentional failure. And that the business community is quite happy with that because people will forget this year that last year was a failure. Or if they remember that it's a failure, then they'll redouble the effort and say, okay, but this year it's going to be a success because that's the promise of Christmas. And so people, again, will go out this year and spend a lot of money and do all of that kind of stuff. But as you're telling me now, there's not a whole lot of joy in your household.
No.
So Christmas is not keeping its promise.
Not at all.
All of those songs of "We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year" ain't happening. That is hard for the adults to put away all of their worldly misery and come and really celebrate Christmas. And it's really hard for the kids, too. And so that's why we want to buy bigger and bigger things, because the promise is that all of these toys that we buy will make the kids happy. And if the kids are happy, then the adults will be happy too, because all the kids are in great joy. But from what I hear is whatever dog that's in the household, he's the only one who's happy because he gets all of the scraps, all of the leftovers from all of the goodies of Christmas.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because the dog is thinking with his stomach.
Yeah. The dogs are very happy.
So, in a way, you haven't been doing your job.
No.
I mean, you're the Dhamma dude in the house. You're a new Dhamma dude, but you're the Dhamma dude. It's time
Yeah,
for you to spread the joy, which means you got to come up with some.
for sure. Yeah. Um, but that's what I've been having difficulty with is manufacturing that joy. In
You
the face
expect
of all.
Christmas to give it to you?
No, not at all. No. I don't personally participate in Christmas gift giving and all that stuff. But I watch it, you know.
Oh,
And
so you're the bah humbug.
I suppose so. I mean, I no, I don't. It could be it, you know.
Well, I don't know. I don't know the relationship that you've got with your brothers, except that right now, none of you are overjoyed.
Um, yeah, I don't know. It could just be me. I had a, I had a good time for the most part, but like I said, a lot of it with me is just it's a lot of social interaction for me personally, for these several days with a lot of
Uh-huh.
family. So yeah, it could just be that.
Have you had a food fight or a pie throwing contest or anything yet?
No, not at all.
Well, why don't you try that? I mean, you got to do something to get the joy going.
Yeah.
But what you're reporting is very, very typical. And that is that people get together at Christmas almost as if they're bound to or an obligation for it.
That's
But
what
it also built into it, it has that promise of the Yuletide cheer. And yet the people come together because they're supposed to. They spend all the money and they do everything that they're supposed to, waiting then for the promise to be fulfilled, and all will be well. And everyone will be happy, and sugar plums will dance in the heads of the kids, and all of that. But it doesn't happen unless someone is actually intently interested in making it happen. But
Yeah.
nobody there is doing that. So in this conversation, the idea is to give you a job to do, and that is to finish off the holidays in great joy. That this is the whole point of the sitting meditation. If you can, in fact, start to do the sitting meditation so that you can remember to come back to the breath, remember to come back to the moment, remember to gladden the mind, remember to begin to feel good, and then eventually remember to be the lion. But we don't want to do that just on the cushion. That's a practice for when you're around others, and Christmas is that time of year.
Hmm.
And so we got to get you up. We got to get you happy. We got to get you in great cheer so that you can go and spread it. This is actually what is referred to kind of in the Brahma Viharas. Now, the
Hmm.
word Brahma here is not necessarily the top Brahmin, but rather the concept of the Brahmins or the royal family. And the Vihara is actually the home. So the home of the Brahmins would be that home where at Christmas time everyone is in great joy. And under the Brahma Viharas, they have metta, and
Hmm.
then they have Karuna, and then Mudita, and then Opeka. This is the four Brahma Viharas, and Metta is basically friendship. And compassion then is, I guess, the gift giving of uh, not just at Christmas time for your own family, but to be generous with the community.
Hmm.
But generally, the problem is the mudita, and that is who is in charge of getting everybody filled with joy. And I'm not talking about getting them all drunk,
Right.
but rather to spread the joy, the mudita. The mudita, actually, the word is called sympathetic joy or sympathetic vibration. Now, humans operate under the system in our society, our social structures that go way back down into our genes as part of our instinctual behavior, that feelings are transmitted differently than information. Information, we use language, but feelings is like automatic pickup. So that if I feel angry, then I spread anger, and everybody around me then picks up on that sympathetic vibration and they become angry also. So if I'm angry at them, they'll put their anger back at me. If I'm angry at the bank, then my intention is to get them to be angry at the bank also. Or if I'm angry at the government, be angry at the government. Or if I'm angry at certain politicians, I want them to be angry at certain politicians. And in Christmas time this year, that's going to cause a lot of strife because not everybody hates the same politicians. But they'll begin to hate each other.
Hmm.
But there's another way of looking at it, and that is sympathetic joy rather than sympathetic sadness. I mean, let's face it. Going to a funeral, everybody already knows and expected how to feel. But then when you are around people who are grieving, you begin to feel sad too. So it's not just anger, but fear. Fear is spread sympathetically. Anxiety is spread sympathetically. But joy is also spread sympathetically. In fact, just recently I was in the dentist office. Now, dentist offices are not known to be joyful places.
Mm-hmm.
No, not the dentist, not the clerk, not for the people in the waiting room, not for the attendants. No, dentist offices are not known to be joyful places. But Kitty was there with me, and so I began to play with Kitty, and there was also other kids, and so I got them to start to play. They weren't so shy. I started doing googly eyes and all of this kind of stuff. And the next thing you know, the whole place is just alive with happiness and joy, which was exactly my intention. I did that on purpose. I left everybody smiling,
Sounds great.
using it through the kids. Okay, so if I can do it at the dentist office, can't you do it at Christmas?
Uh, I don't really have that personality, I guess. Uh,
It's not a matter of personality in the long run. It's a matter of how you're behaving in this present moment. If you are full of joy, that joy will be transmitted sympathetically.
mm,
It's very much like this. It happens almost just like airwaves or sound waves.
mm-hmm.
There are pheromones given off by the human body that others pick up on, as well as they hear it, and they can hear by the tone of your voice and other things like that that will pick up that tone of voice in their own heads. And so it really is sympathetic. It's very much like a violin that you put that violin on the shelf in the room and it's properly tuned, and then the trumpet player comes in and he plays the note A, and then he stops playing. Everybody in the room can still hear that violin continuing to play that note A.
Mm,
That's quite amazing that musical instruments will sympathetically vibrate like that. I've also walked into buildings and halls and things like that and can experiment with it and find the resonant frequency of that hall so that you don't have to sound louder or softer on any particular note, but you'll come to one note and the whole place seems to vibrate,
mm,
and it sounds a whole lot louder because of that vibration. Okay, so your job is to merely become happy, to smile, to to have the kind of inflection and the tone of the voice the way that I do. Because when I'm talking to you, aren't you smiling?
yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you just practice doing what I do, and go back and be with your brothers, and learn to be in great sympathetic joy through me to them, so that they, and this would be greatly compassionate. This would be a most compassionate thing for you to do, is to spread your joy. You can do things like, oh, I'm so glad that you're here for Christmas. You don't have to say that the first time that you see them, but you can say it today. I'm so happy that you're here. I'm so happy that you're here. And you believe me, that will bring a little bit of joy to them. If you give them a great big smile, they'll give you a great big smile back. If you give them a sad sack, they'll give you a sad sack back. So when you tell me you don't have the personality for it, you know what I say?
That's right.
It's not a matter of personality, and your personality is not fixed. You are a process. You're a progress. But in fact,
Well,
this is such an important point about the Dhamma. Let me explain it to you. The
mm,
normal way that we think is that our personalities are more or less fixed. We express that in forms like the tiger can't change his spots, or the fruit doesn't fall far from the tree. Um, Another way of looking at it would be, uh, oh, Jill's just being Jill, or they're just a bunch of good old boys. In other words, people have and you're talking about it in the sense of personality. Guess what? You don't have a personality, but you do have moods from moment to moment. And so
Mhm.
when you say you don't have the personality, what that means to me is that, oh, you have a little resistance inside to be happy.
Fear,
Well, guess what? That's the right effort that it takes. Is number one, it takes to remember to be joyful, to remember to be happy, to remember to take a deep breath. And then the right effort is that it really is the right thing to do. Or let us say that that would be right view. That when we're talking about it together, you probably went all throughout Christmas when they're here, you hadn't really thought about it. But now that we're talking about it, you can say, yeah, that actually is a really good idea to be really joyful. It is Christmas time.
Well, see, the thing is, I have thought about it quite a lot, actually.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I've been trying, and even today when I was at my with my family for Christmas, like midway through, I was there like all day. So midway through the day, I actually stopped and did about 30 minutes of sitting meditation just to kind of regather myself. Uh,
Okay.
and yeah, so I have been thinking about it a lot, actually. Um, but, yeah, it comes to a point where it becomes very difficult to um, yeah, I don't know how to describe it, but the my my uh my ability to gladden the mind uh it just becomes just too difficult, I guess. And so
Well,
um, it,
it would you say that it's easier for you to do it when you're off alone and away from all of these people, or is it more difficult to
yeah,
do when you're around them?
well,
Which
it's easier for me when I'm in isolation to gladden the mind for sure. Uh,
okay. Well, now you're understanding what I'm getting at about sympathetic vibrations. You're picking up and vibrating to their tune.
mm,
And you've got a choice. You can vibrate to your own tune. You can vibrate to the music that you know is more wholesome and beneficial. And by you vibrating to a different tune, you'll begin to get them to vibrate to the tune of joy, which is what Christmas is supposed to be all about anyway.
yeah,
And so it should be fairly easy to do it at this time of year. So don't let them direct what mental state that you're going to be in, that you can decide for yourself if you can remember and take the right effort to keep getting yourself into that. And this has really at this point in time, very little to do with your sitting practice. This has to do with how each moment can you remember to greet each person, each moment joyfully.
mm-hmm,
This is Dhamma practice. This really is the practice. And like you say, some people will say that it's hard because everybody else is vibrating at a lower frequency
mm-hmm,
and that you're going to vibrate and intentionally vibrate at a higher frequency is going to take a little bit of effort. Okay, take a deep breath and get a smile on. And there's a lot of Christmas music that is really joyful. And so you can pick out one or two and go around singing it, humming it to yourself out loud so that they get it. Ask them to join you. God rest you, merry gentlemen, may nothing be dismay. You know, that kind of thing. Just go for it. But you don't have to use music of in that kind of music. You can use a different way of sympathetically vibrating with them. Just the feeling of joy gives out pheromones. Your tone of voice
Mm-hmm.
will express it, exude it. I mean, here I am teaching happiness, and if I taught happiness like this, maybe people will become happy the way that I'm so happy inside. I am just so happy. So you can hear, even though I'm playing with you there, you can hear that tone of voice does not exude happiness. That when you are happy, then it comes in your tone of voice, it comes into your mannerisms, and it comes so beautifully that everybody will join in. It really does work. I've seen it work so many times. But you have to decide that you're going to be the happy one in the room. And this is, in fact, Dhamma at its best. This is the teaching of the Buddha. If you're not going to act lighthearted, then how can you expect anybody else to get you to become lighthearted?
Right.
Then, in fact, the word that I like is the word delight, because we lighten up, we begin to float.
Hmm.
And so this is what I would expect you to practice at Christmas time, especially, because that's the time that people, number one, are supposed to be happy, and number two, are not. Possibly one of the reasons that that's true, it's true for both suicides and death in general, that Christmas, or let us say December, is a time to die.
Hmm.
A lot of people die at this time of year. It could be to do with the weather. It could be to do with lack of food. That in fact the old idea is that the rich man was the only one that had a storehouse of food, and by December, all of the crops that were picked in September have either been eaten by the peasants or stolen by the rich man. And so now at Christmas time, he opens his doors to the poor people so that they can begin to feast again, get healthy again. And so that whole system that comes out of our deep past has now, in modern Western society, become a royal failure. That in fact, what I have heard is that most of the retailers, the big retailers, don't really turn a profit all year long, but starting in November through Christmas, and then the sales afterwards, that's when everyone is in the buying spirit, and so that's when the retailers start to turn a profit. Well, you being a wonderful Dhamma dude that you are, can just let them go out of business. You don't have to buy anything because you've already got the joy that the purchases are supposed to bring.
Right.
So I wish you a Merry Christmas, and I mean it. You better have a Merry Christmas. You better be merry. Remember, it's going to take some effort, but you too could be Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And so this is the practice that we have that's off the cushion, but it's actually the same practice as on the cushion. Can you get yourself out of your own sewer? Now, can you get everybody in the house out of their own sewer into actually the celebration of Christmas? So let me hear a ho, ho, ho.
Oh,
Now that will work. That's a good one. I like that one. Okay. So, this thing that you said about personality, oh, I don't have the personality for it, you're recognizing that's not true. That it will take some effort, but whether you have right effort or not is not a matter of your personality. That you are not the leopard who can't change his spots. Wait a minute. Yes, okay. You are not the tiger who cannot change his stripes or the zebra.
Mm,
That you can change. And all we have to do is to change our attitude. That's the main thing to change. But it takes some effort to change that attitude. Now, here's something that's actually quite deeply involved with that, and that is, I think I mentioned it to you before, but if not, this is the introduction to it, and we'll talk about it again later.
mm,
On the path to nobility, on the path that is called the sotapan and wrongly translated into English as stream entry, are seven knowledges. Some of the knowledges are to do with the path, and other knowledges are to do with the fruit of the nobility. Okay, so the path then, the first knowledge is the knowledge that no matter how bad the day is, or the word that is in the sutras is, no matter how obstructed the mind, that I can come out of it and come to the state of joy. I can come to this present moment. I can come to see the reality of the situation. So that's the first knowledge. Now, when we mean by no matter how obstructed the mind, that would be like no matter how bad one of the other brothers is feeling, you can still feel marvelous.
mm.
Even if the two of them are fighting with each other, that's no reason for you to feel bad because they're fighting. Okay? So, why? Because they're fighting. If they were, I'm not saying that they are, but if they were, then the fighting that you don't like is the fighting inside your own head, not their fighting.
Yeah,
That you see them fighting, but then the knowledge of them fighting is in here, and you don't like what your own thoughts are. And so
yeah,
this is why we begin to feel bad. Right. Okay. So it's all a matter of how you feel on the inside anyway. And so
yeah,
that would be your brothers in fighting with each other would only be an obstruction if it were inside your own mind. For instance, they could be fighting with each other and you're in here talking with me and you don't even know that they're fighting. So whether they fight or not has got nothing to do with it. It's how you perceive what's happening.
right. Yeah, I've been thinking about that a lot recently. That
And so
concept.
no matter how obstructed your mind becomes about Christmas or whatever, you can in fact stop that. How? By first off remembering that look at what you're doing. That you don't have to be unhappy. That in fact you are not a personality.
The crazy thing is, I do remember. I do remember, and I see what I'm doing, but I can't. I just can't. I can't.
Take the effort.
I well, yeah, or just change my attitude. To be able to go ahead in the mind
Right.
and
Well,
get
that's
out.
why you call me so we can get this straightened out so that you
Yeah,
recognize that you can do it. You can
yeah,
take the effort. You can become the champion. You can become the Santa Claus of the moment with a great big ho, ho, ho. You can spread Christmas cheer. I know you can do it. But it's going to take a bit of effort because the normal way is, oh, let's not bother, or oh, it's too hard. But you can also see that, wait a minute, that's just the loser's attitude. I can
Yeah,
change my attitude and say, oh, no, I can do this. I can be the life of this party. And then, in fact, if your brothers know you well, they know that you are not the life of the party. And so if you go in there and be the life of the party, that'll surprise them even more.
absolutely.
Yes, you can do that. You can be for Christmas what you would like to be for Christmas. Give yourself that gift this Christmas, the gift of a Merry Christmas. Can you do that?
Um, well,
I don't
well, no,
know.
yeah, but Christmas is over, so
Well, you could have, yeah, you did try to call me yesterday. It's been a busy season. 'Tis the
yeah,
season to be jolly. Lots of people call Dhammarato.
I bet. I'm sure you've been busy, but I appreciate it. Yeah,
but it's not over because they're not gone yet.
right. But I don't have problems with my brothers. We're pretty joyful together. So
Great,
I
great.
it's just at the family functions with a lot of family usually. Yeah, and
Well,
like
I only mention your brothers because you mentioned them, but you're mentioning all of the family. So yeah, you've got everyone to be happy. You can be joyful with everyone. The really important one to be joyful with, though, is you.
no, definitely. I absolutely acknowledge that. Um, there's no reason for me to not be joyful. So, uh, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna say. I guess that it's usually a very difficult time for me, anyways. So this isn't unexpected at all. And I probably did much better than I normally do, anyways. So,
Well,
uh,
congratulate yourself for that. That'll help you feel even better that you can
yeah,
do this. You're beginning to change that attitude, that you can change, that you
yeah,
can do this. You can come out of these obstructions,
yeah,
that your personality is not set.
yeah. Well, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I know it for sure.
Well, let that be your practice right now. To every moment, become mindful that, hey, my job is to go around making everybody happy. In order to do that, you got to have some. It's really hard to give a gift you don't have.
Yeah,
And so you get happy on the inside, and then you can go and you can share it. And then there's a whole symphony of joy, and everybody is kind of playing their own kind of musical instrument in their mind, but it winds up being a joyous celebration. So go do that. That's the way to practice, because it is Christmas is not over yet.
okay.
Christmas is not a clock. Christmas is not a calendar. Christmas is a frame of mind and a time of year.
Okay.
All right. So,
Well,
can I hear a can? I can do this.
I can do this. Easy
Okay,
peasy.
great.
Yeah, thank you, Dhammarato.
Okay, well, call me in a few days and give me a recap
Okay.
about what a marvelous Christmas it turned out to be after all.
Oh well.
Excellent. Okay, we'll see you.
All right. Bye.
Bye bye.